Hello, everyone, and welcome to our special webinar presentation, the top 5 features in Deltek Costpoint 8.2. I'm Don Carnevale, Director of Corporate Marketing at NeoSystems, and I'll be the moderator for today's discussion. We're so excited to be presenting this webinar with Deltek, our closest and longest running partner. So let's get started. Today, I'm joined by 2 people who have tremendous depth and breadth of experience with Costpoint. I know they're excited about sharing their insights with you about this latest release. Susan Mitchell is Chief Financial Officer at NeoSystems. And now I'd like to introduce our other speaker, Wolfgang Thiers, Senior Manager and Portfolio Advisor at Deltek. Wolf?
Thanks, Don. Hello, everyone. I'm Wolfgang Thiers. Many of you might know me by the name Wolf. Go by that often. I've been with Deltek a little over 18 years. I came from a government contractor using Costpoint, worked on multiple implementations of Costpoint through the various versions, and I'm excited to talk to you today about our latest version, Costpoint 8.2. Susan?
Thanks, Wolf. And just to give you an introduction for me, I am Susan Mitchell, the Chief Financial Officer of NeoSystems. And I am kind of coming to you today with this webinar from a unique background in the fact that I've been a user for about 25 years of Costpoint. Some of you may or may not know that as a Deltek partner, we also use Costpoint internally at NeoSystems. So as the CFO, this is, Costpoint is near and dear to my heart from that perspective. But also I've been using, I've used it in the consulting capacity, I've implemented and everything like that. So we're going to talk to you a little bit today about Costpoint 8.2. And I have to say, after going through the enhancements document and everything, the reason I wanted to do this webinar was because I was very excited as a longtime user of some of the enhancements that are coming in this version, because they're things that I would say that I have wanted, for a long time, and Deltek definitely listened when they were getting feedback from users. So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to start off with what is changing for you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how you look at the enhancements guide and kind of tailor it to your company and kind of figure out your path, for upgrade. We're going to talk about, and I say, so originally when marketing had titled this the top 5, and I think they knew this when I said I wanted to do this, that I was going to have many more things than 5. So there are a lot of things that we're going to talk through today, and we've kind of grouped them by user experience, the accounting module, projects module, materials, and other areas of Costpoint. So we have a lot to go over in 45 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And Dawn, so for today, one thing that I would like to say is we want to keep you all interactive and awake. So we want you to kind of, we're going to ask you some questions throughout this, some polling questions. So Dawn, do you want to do the first one?
Sure. Thanks, Susan. So as Susan mentioned, we are going to be doing multiple polling questions during this webinar session. This one is just kind of getting us off started with a fun question about where'd you go for your summer vacation? So I'm sure we've got some great stories out there about where you went. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this and just go ahead and enter your response, and then we'll share the answers here in just a moment. All right, so we've got the answers are in. Looks like beach, ocean, number 1. No surprise there. People love the beach and they love the ocean.
Excellent.
Absolutely. Love the fact that the staycation is a low number. I know after the last couple of years of staying at home, I was expecting that to be even lower. But yeah, still something that people do.
Yep. Well, few too many for the vacation. What vacation though? I wish people would get out and enjoy themselves during the summer. So thanks, Susan.
Okay. So diving right on in. So when we talk about what is changing for you, so if you're overwhelmed on how to even figure this out of how 8.2 would affect you, what I wanted to go over is kind of some tried and true knowledge of how to figure that out. So Deltek does a very good job of putting out release documents with notes that detail through this. Sometimes they can be very voluminous and they can seem overwhelming. So the way that you want to approach that is you can go through the table of contents by module for the modules your company uses. So if you're, for whatever you're licensed for and things like that, go through those and, essentially look at those. So if you don't use that module, if it's not something you're licensed for, you can kind of set that aside. The one thing that I would say is that there is so much new functionality that has come along with some of these other, kind of modules like the supplier portal and things like that, that you might want to go ahead and read through those, because those could help streamline processes that, currently take you a lot of time and that, are very, inefficient and things like that. So you could gain cost savings by implementing some of those new functionalities. But continuing on kind of how you look at the document. So as an example, over to the right, I've put kind of the accounting domain, and then how it will have various other, kind of tabs and things underneath it, and it will go into the specifics. So you can kind of use that to guide you through looking at how this is going to affect your company. The other one is, if you don't know if you use it, reach out to your SMEs. So your subject matter experts, the people that are using the system day in and day out, they sometimes will be, most helpful in saying, oh, wow, this is great. This would be make my job so much easier. Reach out to your SMEs. The other thing is, do you use the functionality that is changing? So in some cases, if you don't use the functionality, if you're trying to prioritize, because many companies will try to kind of prioritize what they're going to look at, I would want to prioritize those functions that you're using and then, kind of look at the additional ones. Okay, so to kind of start off with what we're going to talk about. So in the general area, and we're going to walk through actual in Costpoint, some of these, when we kind of, after we've talked through a few of these. So in general, the one thing that I thought was really kind of cool when I logged into the system in 8.2 is there's in-app guidance. So when you log into 8.2, it actually will pull up for you on the screen and tell you about that new function and give you a walkthrough of that function. So it's a nice feature to get acclimated to the new functionality. The other thing is the new look and feel for navigation. So there's kind of a whole new look, and it's much easier to kind of navigate around. And we'll walk through that more when we go over to the actual application. So you have the My Menu section, there's recent applications, which I have to say that's very handy, because if you're just wanting to click and go back, you don't have to click through the breadcrumb trail anymore. It's just right there for you. And then you also have, you still have your open applications, but then you can also do what I'll call kind of a process flow. And I'll show you an example of that when we go in as well. There's also quick find and application screens and subtasks. So this is one of my personal favorites that Wolf and I were actually laughing about yesterday when we were preparing. Just that it makes looking up things much easier, and we'll walk through that. And then for those of you that I like to work in dark mode, there's now a dark mode option for Costpoint, so that if you've been, us accountants, if you've been staring at that screen for a while, you can now have that dark mode. The other thing is interactive emails. So this is fantastic. So what this is that it used to be, you would get a notification that you had to approve something, say a timesheet, and you would have to go log into the timesheets, go over, log into Costpoint, go over and approve it. Now you have the ability with the interactive emails to see what that timesheet is and approve from the email. And there's also pre-configured workflows. So some of the basic workflows, say like a billing workflow where you want to route invoices, those are now coming pre-configured in 8.2. So now I'm going to turn it over to Wolf to tell you a little bit about the accounting.
Sure, no problem. I know you got all the fancy fun stuff of the new UI up front, but we'll talk to the accountants there. And so one of the big things that we've done is look at the multi-user report printing. So again, you used to have to go in, we get stuck with some of those things where somebody else is doing that function, et cetera. That's not the case anymore. We now have the ability for multiple users to get in there and print those reports. Cash receipts is another area where we've really been able to enhance the way cash receipts flow and the ability for us to enter cash receipts, et cetera. So some of those basic functions, as Susan was talking about earlier, that you can gain some efficiencies. It's not so much that you're using a brand new application, but you're actually able to use that application more efficiently. And as a longtime user myself of Costpoint, one of the things that I always found kind of odd was that AP vouchers was always that fixed length format. For any of those of you that import AP vouchers, you want to bring them in from that file. We always had it as a fixed length format. We've now made the import AP vouchers via CSV. So it works like all the other preprocessors or import utilities. And then, thinking on that AP voucher is also the ability for the ICR, intelligent character recognition. So in combining both the AP voucher process with the CMI, so ability to put AP vouchers, scan them in, and bring them into a document management system, we've now added that intelligent character recognition. For any of you that are on Costpoint 8.0 or 8.1 today, excuse me, and that we're looking at using expense, where you would take a picture of a receipt through the expense module and have that intelligent character recognition where it reads, takes the OCR, converts that picture into words, and pre-populates things for you. We've put that now functionality into AP vouchers. So able to process AP vouchers, pre-populate a lot of the information onto that voucher. So really enhancing and making entry of AP vouchers much faster. And then, lastly, on the accounting side, really looking at the vendor updates. So not really vendor creation, but the ability for your vendors that are using the supplier portal to be able to enter or actually change the information, say this is the update. We've if you're using subcontractor management, you say we've got new vendor employees. Here's the new vendor employees. We have a change of address or whatever it is, or point of contact. So you're able to make some changes to the vendor, your vendors, your suppliers. We're able to make changes through the supplier portal for that. And then, some of those other single user functions that we took in 8.1 and we were able to convert into multi-user functions, we've been able to do a lot more in 8.2, in these posting functions, reversing previous bills, printing manufacturing orders, and as well as, I talked a little bit about some of those printing functions, all the way down to printing fixed asset journals, et cetera. So there's a lot of things that are able to now be multi-user function. It's certainly something that we know not everything is there. And so those continue to be on the roadmap. Right now, they're scheduled out there, as you can see on the screen, but we may be able to accelerate a few of those as well. So really looking to make sure that we continue to allow you to use Costpoint with multiple users in the system at one time. And so now we'll go on to poll question number 2, Don.
Thanks, Wolf. Yes, next question. What Costpoint version are you currently using? And you can see your possible responses right there. So we will launch the poll momentarily and let you respond to that. We'll give you just a few seconds to enter your answer in, and then we'll share the results.
Now, Susan, I know that I'm obviously using the most current version being here at Deltek, but I started back in Costpoint 3.0C. So I've been using Costpoint for quite a while. But I think you have me beat.
I think I have you beat with 2.1B.
2.1B, huh? Okay.
Yeah, that was quite a few years ago. I think we're dating ourselves, Wolf.
Just a little bit, just a little bit.
All right, and here are our results.
Okay, so we've got a few. Most everyone's up on 8.1. That's great. A few are still back in the 7s.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the projects area. So there's a few things in here that, again, when I was going through, I had a hard time just going through and picking one thing to talk about. So I'm going and just kind of giving my highlights. And the one thing that I will say, Wolf and I are touching upon highlights of the enhancements. If you look through the enhancements document, there are many more. So this was more just our the ones that we were excited about from a personal perspective. So the first one I would say is in projects is the ability to split labor and non-labor fees in billing. So this is one that I think has been a long time coming, and I'm very excited about this one because in the past we kind of had to do some workarounds and things to try to get that to, to work like we wanted. So I'm very excited about that one. The other one is that the only reason I point out the Cobra interface is that some of us over the course of years have bootlegged one of the Costpoint fields in the managed project user flow, which was the Cobra mapping value, to put other things in it if we weren't using Cobra. So I just want to point out for you is if you're going through and you're doing your assessment of like how things will change for your company, if you had, and I say bootlegged, if you were using that field for something else, you might want to look and see if you want to put it somewhere, if you want to put another field or just put an extension for whatever you were capturing in that field. Many users use that because they could query on that. So it's moving off of that screen. So I just wanted to point that one out. And then multi-user reports, Wolf talked a little bit about that one on the last slide. So just the ability to have multiple people in doing some of those processes. And this one specifically, I know posting standard bills has been one that many users, have been wanting to see. There's also performance optimization. So there's, for those of us that have very large databases, that, calculating and posting bills and things like that are, something that we do every close, and it kind of takes us a bit of time. There has been some optimizations and things that have been done to help that. And then one that's kind of near and dear to my heart, just because of how I love rates and cost structures and things like that, is the pool rate the arithmetic overflow. So there is enhancements in there to specifically, if you have a rate pool, and many of us that have managed rates over the years, sometimes it happens and you end up with a rate that's a little odd, like very high or something like that. So there is now an enhancement in there to help you with that arithmetic overflow error that you sometimes get. The other thing in the projects area is putting transactions on hold for a specific time. So if it used to be that you have to go back and look every single time, did I put that on hold? When's it going to come off hold? Like those types of things. But if okay, we're putting this on hold for 2 months for whatever reason, you can actually put a specific time. So that's a definite enhancement, in my opinion, of functionality. And then track previously reversed bills. So that's another one that you can kind of see what's happened, like with your, if you had to reverse the bill, if you had to redo it. That's excellent functionality that has been added to the system. Wolf, you want to talk about materials? I know it's near and dear to you.
Yes, materials. And I think the first one is one that is, certainly been often requested, and that's RMA functionality. So we now have managed customer returns in Costpoint. So we're now able to actually manage, track, and process those returns when we do have customer returns. So that's certainly a big one on that piece. Also on the requisitions, really being able to get to that delivery schedule. Not everything is immediate. Not everything do you need now. You need to be able to help the planning out and make sure that things are delivered when you need them, not necessarily immediately now. So we certainly want a requisition delivery schedule and getting that and helping the planning functionality. Other, minor enhancements from the address and the ship ID lookup, being able to say, I need to know what that ship ID is, but actually be able to see the address. And then the BI side. So really in the BI piece, is all about getting you better data. So a lot of that is on inventory visibility, looking at what your current value is. Do you have negative net inventory based on your demand? Do you actually have what is the expiration date? So if you have things that are going to be expiring, and we want to know what those are. So we've got a lot of BI enhancements, again, giving you that visibility into what you're doing within the material side. The NAICS code updates, really, we've had NAICS codes have been around for a while. However, on purchase orders, for example, if you're going to be buying from a supplier, you also might need to track on there that for this supplier, for this NAICS code, on the PO itself, you can put in there whether it's a small, large, medium, et cetera business. So business size is right there on the purchase order, not something that's just in the part of the vendor master anymore. Back flushing, I know that's another requirement that's been out there for a while. People always wanting to be able to back flush serial and lot coded items. We've put that functionality in there as well. The hyperlinks, now this is something that if anyone's been using the contracts module before, have seen something similar to this, where you're in a screen and you're actually, you need to go and view something on another screen, but you just, in the old days, we would have to copy and paste that code, that PO number, whatever it is, and move on and go to another inquiry screen to find what that is. We've added now hyperlinks in here so that you don't have to do this copy and paste functionality. You can simply hyperlink and go from one screen to the next, taking you from the right screen to where it is, making your time more efficient, not having to go back out, open other applications, et cetera, directly. Print from managed screens. Now there's actually a long list, and I definitely would encourage you to read those release notes. A long list of managed screens where you're in a managed PO screen and you want to print the PO. Well, you don't have to go to the print PO screen. You can print that PO directly from that managed screen. So again, really trying to make sure that you're able to work more efficiently, more effectively, and you're working really seamlessly with the product. And I think that's what kind of like the overall theme here for the materials module.
Okay, so our last area that we're going to talk about is kind of our other. So in the contracts module, so I was very excited about some of the things, and because some of you may have seen my other webinar that I did originally on contracts, but there were some great things in some of the other areas that I was excited about. So one of them is the add new field values via the lookup. So this one specifically, and I'll walk through this one more when we're going through the demo, but in the opportunities module, if I have a new opportunity I'm trying to enter and I don't currently have, say, that customer that's set up, it will actually allow me to do an add new from that screen and type in, minimal information and then hit save and go forward. So instead of having to go click and go, have to enter in a bunch of information and then go back, it moves it along very quickly. The other one that I was excited about, just because, as some of you know, NeoSystems is very cybersecurity conscious and everything like that, and we have an entire group of people that focus on helping clients with their security and CMMC stuff. There is an enhancement over in Gov1IQ where you have CMMC information for vendors that it will bring in. So this helps you if that information is important to you, which it is for many government contractors these days, it can help you with that. There's also leads and contacts enhancements. So being able to track those contacts and things over in the opportunities area that's another enhancement that's coming along. And then org security is now available in contracts. So it was not previously, and this was something that is definitely fantastic, because now we can kind of box, people in. If you have a very large organization and you don't want everybody seeing things, this can help you. Then the planning module. So there's a lot of stuff that came with that is being enhanced in the planning module. I could probably do a whole other webinar on the planning module. But just to name some of them, process banners, to help with the whole planning module flow. And then the menu has been streamlined. There's been a lot of good things that have come to the planning module. Time and expense. This one is very exciting. So there's automatic overtime calculation enhancements. So a lot of the things that we've been wanting to have help us, with some of the processes and take some of the labor intensive things off of our back are there. We talked about a little bit about the interactive emails, and then the timesheet looks very different. So and Wolf, maybe you can actually mention this a little bit more, the kind of the crowd, I guess I call it crowdsourcing, but the process that you can go through now with on the Deltek support site, where you can essentially put in, hey, I'd like to see this.
Yep, I can certainly do that. So if you're the person within your company, or at least the person within your company that has that support site access, through that we have what is called the Ideas Portal. Now, the Ideas Portal is the ability for you to go in as a customer of Deltek, go in and add your idea of what enhancement you would like to see. So if there's something that is not in the product that you're looking for, you can certainly put that in. However, the other benefit to this is you can see what other ideas other people have submitted. So rather than trying to go in and say, oh, I'm the one with the idea, you could see that somebody else has. If you see that idea, you can now upvote it. What that really does for us as the software vendor here is let us know more than one company wants this. People are excited about this enhancement. The result of that is some of the enhancements that you're seeing here in 8.2 is that these are enhancements that people have put in, have voted for, and said, this is certainly what would make our life easier if you were to do this. And so I think some of the fruits are coming to bear from that Ideas Portal right now. And we certainly would encourage you to continue to either enter or upvote whatever it is that you think would be a great enhancements for Costpoint in the future.
Okay, so Don, I think we have one more poll question.
Yes, this is our next poll question. So question is, when was the last time you performed a cost point assessment or optimization? That could have been just internally or through a third party. So just get this launched for you and you can answer that for us.
Yeah, and one thing that's interesting about the cost point assessments and optimization is that and Wolf, I don't know what your experience has been with them, but there's a lot of users that are out there that they've upgraded, but they, say from 7.1 to 8 or to 8 to 8.1, but they haven't really taken advantage of the additional functionality. So one of the things that I like about the cost point assessment or optimization is that it actually allows people, to kind of go back and assess things that could make their life easier.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's why, why we want to do things like this webinar here, where we talk about new features and functionalities. But there are things that were released in 8.0 and 8.1 that hopefully people are taking advantage of. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. And the assessments and optimization workshops certainly help you with that. So, and most people have never had one of those. So yeah, it's certainly something that if you've been on the Costpoint, if you've been on Costpoint long enough to have, upgraded a version, certainly something to think about.
Yes, and the one thing I would say about that too is that what I have seen when doing some of these is that, the client implemented 10 or 15 years ago, and they were a very different business at that point in time. And as they grew and everything like that, there's just other features and things that they can take advantage of that they just haven't, that can make their life so much easier. So,
yes.
Okay, so now we're going to we're going to stop with our slides, and we're going to actually go over into our Costpoint 8.2 environment. So what I'm going to walk you through. So this is the new Costpoint kind of UI, and you guys can see that it's a little bit of a different look and feel. So we have our our domains down here. So our accounting, contracts, planning, our usual ones that we saw. You'll also notice that I now have this recent activity, which is a nice little thing if I want to go into, like wherever I last was. And then I also have this, which is kind of a process flow that I had set up for month end. So if I have a process that I want to show, and I can set these up in my menu, it's just literally as simple as clicking this, and I can add, I can add a group header, I can add whatever screens I want, and it will show that, you know, in my monthly close tasks, or, you know, my monthly close processes here. The other thing that I was very excited about with this is that if I come over here and I click, I now have the ability to go to dark mode. So if you are someone that, you know, likes to see, you know, you want to have the dark mode version, you now have the ability to change that and operate in that mode. So the first thing I kind of wanted to point out, so when we were talking about the quick find, so my example of that one for you is that now in the project manage user flow screen, if I come up here and I want to find a project, I can just start typing my project. So if I want to go, say, to this one that I had that's a direct, I can just go and click on that and it will pull my project up for me. So I no longer have to go query, find, you know, that whole process. I can literally just come in here and do that. So the next thing that I wanted to kind of walk through, so we had one of the things that Wolf mentioned, and again, you'll see I have, you know, kind of my nice look and feel here where I can just click around very quickly, was we talked a little bit about the supplier portal. And I wanted to point this one out because what many of us struggle with is when you got a new vendor, you know, there's information, there's all of the stuff that we have to collect from the vendor. And, you know, we need to get them set up in Costpoint. Well, this addition of the manage vendor screen in Costpoint under the supplier portal will now allow me to have that vendor go in and update information. And like if they have a new address or they have something, you know, new or anything like that, it will allow them to go in and edit it. They can save it. And then I have the ability and approve that, like review what they did and then approve it before it goes into, you know, the vendor master over in the AP side. So that's one of, from a process perspective, all of that data entry that your AP department is having to go through and do, it can help streamline that process a lot. One of my other items that I was extremely happy about was the manage opportunities over under the managed opportunities area. And I'll show you kind of how this new thing works, is that if I wanted to add this one, I now have the ability for this customer, instead of having to go over to my prospective customer screen, I can just say add new cust, type a quick name, put in my type. I'm just going to do that one and just save it. Sorry. And it automatically puts it in. So instead of having to go through the process over where I was, I can now just do it all right there. So then, as Wolf talked about, the customer returns. So there's a whole entire screen now devoted to the customer returns over in that purchasing area or procurement area, I should say, or the, I'm sorry, the
Sales order, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's considered a sales order, you know, instead of being a sales order for a new product, it's a sales order for a return.
Correct. Then the other one, really quick, and I'm not going to go too far into the weeds, but when we talk about printing from the managed screen, so it's literally when you're in a managed screen and you do the drop down, you have the option of printing whatever that document is. So there's many screens that have that, as Wolf was talking about, there's many screens that have that ability. But that's just like, you know, one of the ones that has that. So I'm like I said, I have many more that I could go through, but I'm gonna, since in an effort to save time, I'm going to go back to, and we want to allow a few minutes for some questions. I'm going to go back to our slideshow. And Wolf, if you want to, hang on a moment. My slideshow restarted.
Hey, we get to do it all again.
Yeah, we can go through the whole slideshow again. My apologies, everyone. I did not mean for that to do that. Okay, so Wolf, if you want to talk through the roadmap.
Sure, no problem. So I think hopefully people are seeing some of these themes coming through as we're moving forward of digital transformation and purposeful innovation and the user experience, especially. So, we're looking at some of these things of source to pay, capturing contract management, digital manufacturing, all those things that help you operate your business from a digital perspective and really support digital transformation within your company. That's where we're going through, and that's why we're making these enhancements to really support you where you are on that journey. And when we talk about purposeful innovation, it really is all about the things that we're adding that are just making your life easier. Everybody talks about artificial intelligence these days. It's a huge thing. We leverage artificial intelligence within the BI tool, the IBM Cognos and Watson. So IBM Watson within our BI tool is really where we've put that in our artificial intelligence. We're continuing to do that, and there are several enhancements within there for that as well. Talk a little bit about the ICR and within the AP module. So we're going to continue to do that, again, trying to take that monotonous effort of I've got a document, I scan it in, now I've got to go put information in, let the machines do it. We have progressive web apps to allow you to work anywhere and everywhere and anywhere. We've got robotic process automation, mostly through partners, and voice recognition. So voice recognition, again, we're not necessarily, we've got the Hey Deltek for certain basic functions, and we'll continue to drive that because that's certainly where people are. Cybersecurity, as Susan mentioned, is extremely important for us and for you. We continue to make sure that we make a large investment in cybersecurity, not just in Deltek's cloud, but in the product itself, so that whether you are in Deltek's cloud, whether you're on-prem as a perpetual customer, or you're sitting with a hosting partner such as NeoSystems and you're hosted by Neo, we are doing everything we can to make sure that you have a secure and compliant, but secure first and compliant system to support those needs and protect your data. And UI and UX, really important for us. 8.2, as you can see, has a new look and feel. Not everything has changed. Some of those screens, look very similar to the 8.1 screens, but we are continuing to invest in that and move it forward. We've taken that road with some of the workflow enhancements. Again, some of the just a look and feel of that. Really, that easier ability to access product information, etc. Those in-app learning aids that Susan started with, as well as that enhanced request visibility that I talked about a little bit a while ago with that ideas portal. Really trying to make sure that we are here and being responsive for everything that you need to run that business. So that's where our themes are. Hopefully you can see going from a 7 to an 8 to 8.1 to 8.2 that we're staying true to these 4 themes and are continuing to make progress along all 4 of those routes.
Okay, and then I think we have one last question for you before we open it up for questions.
Thank you, Susan. Yes, this is about how much of the Costpoint functionality you perceive that you are actually using. So you can see the answers right there. So now I will launch the question. You can please provide your answer.
Yeah, and with this one, I always find this is an interesting question when I'm talking to people, because they, when you're asking them how they're using the system and things like that, and then they'll say, I didn't even know, like you'll show them something and they'll say, I didn't even know that was there, or that kind of thing. So I always find that interesting to see how much people think they're using the system and then how much they don't. So
that idea between perception and reality, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so I will end the poll now and share the results.
Okay, so a lot right there in the middle. in the 26 to the 50 and the 51 to 75% of there. That's good. That's good.
Okay, so now, this is just a little bit about NeoSystems. Don, did you want to talk a little bit?
Sure. So this is just a brief overview. A number of folks on the call are familiar with NeoSystems, but I know there's a number of our registrants and attendees who are probably their first interaction with NeoSystems. And we work with government contractors. We work with their back office. We know compliance. We're experts at compliance, the regulatory standards, reporting requirements, and we offer outsource accounting, finance, payroll, HR, IT, and information security, and we can take that off of your plate. So, our team has the experience. We offer the people, the processes, and the tools to really help you grow your business, so you can focus more on winning new contracts and growing your business, and not worrying about the day-to-day operations of your organization. So, as we say at the bottom there, we understand back office compliance and cybersecurity, so you don't have to.
Okay, so I think, Don, we're going to open it up for questions.
Yes, and we've had a number of questions come in during the webinar, and we'll certainly get to those momentarily. But there was so much interest and enthusiasm about this webinar that we actually got a few questions in advance, before today. So we're just going to go touch on those very quickly, and then we'll get to the questions that were entered here in the last few minutes. The first question is, and Wolf, maybe you can answer this, is, do I need to do anything special to take advantage of the interactive emails?
Yeah, thanks, Don. So no, there's nothing special that you need to have that you need to do for interactive emails. If you've already got your Costpoint system set up to connect to Outlook or your email system for the basics of notification, really is what you really need in order to have those interactive emails go out. So there is a few configuration settings within Costpoint, but there's no extra licensing or anything of that nature. And if you happen to be in our cloud, we've done that. A lot of that configuration is already done for you. So you are good to go for using those interactive emails right away.
Excellent, thank you. This question came in from a Deltek hosted cloud user, Wolf, and they were wondering when they will get upgraded to Costpoint 8.2. And I actually saw some other questions come in the last few minutes asking really about the same thing. When will they get upgraded to this latest version?
Right. Excellent questions. We're out here talking about what 8.2 is, and I'm sure people are like going, great, let me have some of that. When can I get it? Great question. So we already have a number of our customers that have already been upgraded. We already have 2 pods. And for those of you that might not know, all of our Costpoint clouds we put together various customers together into various pods. We've already upgraded 2 pods to the 8.2 version. We have everyone else scheduled at this point for the spring of next year. So I know that seems like a long way away, sitting here in September. And the main reason behind that is that we know that we are at the end of the government fiscal year, the beginning of the new government fiscal year coming up here in a short number of days. We're coming up against calendar year end, which is also fiscal year end from a lot of our customers. And I would say that the majority of our requests for people that whenever we've done enhancements, whenever we've done upgrades before in the past, have always been, that's great, just don't screw up my year end. Don't do it during my year end. I don't want to have it during my year end. So we've kind of listened to those customers, and we've put a pause on that and decided that rather than trying to figure out who can go and who can't go during a year end, we've put a little bit of a pause in here and saying, we're going to allow everyone to get through their government year end. We're going to allow everybody to get through their fiscal year end, assuming you're on a calendar basis, and get through all that year end stuff. And we're going to be rolling out with all of the 8.2 enhancements in a very short time right after that year end. So it's coming soon. Probably not fast enough for a few of you.
Yes, accountants don't like it when you mess with our systems at year end.
No, certainly not.
Okay, we did have a question come in asking about will we have the ability to save vendor invoices?
So saving vendor invoices. So when I talked about the vendor invoices before, that really is a leveraging the content management integration capability where you're able to put those vendor invoices into the document management system, have that connected to that AP voucher. So we have that ability. You certainly can save it. It follows that transaction all the way through history. So I'm hoping that's what was the question was being asked. If it's not, please let us know, and we can always go a different direction if I misunderstood that question.
We have a question here about functional roles. Can you clarify how the new functional roles will work with current standard security groups, org security, and reports?
New functional roles with current standard security groups. So functional roles in the sense of what we're looking at there, really I always think of functional roles more on the BI side than I do think of it on the Costpoint side, because the Costpoint side really is more of your standard security groups. When we look at the functional roles and we think about something like a role of a project manager, right? So a security group tells you I have access to these screens, I have access to these particular reports, etc. I can get to that. Functional role being like a project manager, a project biller, etc., is now able to limit down to that view of you're either in that approval process. So we have put a approval process around approving an invoice, etc. It's the workflow says it goes to the project manager. You're the project manager on this. You're the functional role project manager, so it knows to go to you. I don't have to create it on an individual basis as well. And it's not like I have to send it to you as an individual. I can send it to the role. You having the role then gets the report. So a lot of that flexibility that is there on that side around approvals and visibility. So a little bit different than organizational security, which organizational security says I can see everything in my organization or whatever organization I have access to. So really trying to use functional roles in approval processes as well as limiting visibility, which is different from security, which limits you to the applications, which is different from org security, which limits you to which orgs you're in. So it can reduce the number of orgs you might need to have created in the past. Hopefully that made sense. Susan, did you have anything that you want to add to that? Or did I completely confuse everybody?
Yeah, I guess I look at the functional roles more from a workflow perspective. That's, that's more of what those functional roles, to me, that's what they stand for in my head. And then you have the security roles that are, like you said, guide, what screens you can see and things like that.
So we had another question come in asking about, is the move from 8.1 to 8.2 an upgrade or an update? And what is the estimated level of effort required from the client to make that move?
So I would call it more of an update. It certainly is. There's certainly a lot of we call it an upgrade because we are moving from version 8.1 to version 8.2, but it is nowhere near the lift that we had when for those of us that were around for like a 6 to 7 was something of that nature of a level of upgrade. Nowhere near that level of lift. So it really is, if you've gone from 8.0 to 8.1, it's going to be something similar to that in your level of effort. The most effort that we anticipate is really on the training of your users and re-looking at your processes. Users are going to see the screen, they're going to look at something different. Obviously the menu looks different. Some of those new features and functionalities we want you to be able to take advantage of. So it's going to be all about end user adoption than it is going to be from an IT effort perspective.
Okay, thanks, Wolf. And so we're a little bit past our time, but this was great because we had a lot of questions come in. I did want to mention also that a number of you submitted thoughts and comments regarding some additional potential features that you'd like to see in future versions of Costpoint. So Wolf will definitely pass those along to you, and so you can get those over to your team in due time. So now, Susan, I'm going to pass it back to you. You can see the contact information on the screen in case anyone has any questions moving forward. Please feel free to reach out to any of us at the email addresses there on the screen.
Thank you.
So that'll conclude the webinar. Susan and Wolf, thanks very much. This was a great conversation, and we could tell a lot of people had a lot of interest because of a lot of the questions and great registration numbers. So we appreciate your time and preparing for this presentation and delivering some great information. And certainly we thank everyone for attending today, giving us time out of your day to learn a little bit more about the latest version of Costpoint 8.2. So thanks and have a great day. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.